Train the muscles, not the joints.
Welcome back to Natural Gallant Bodybuilding. Mountain. You see I have a tree growing out of my head, so you know it's a natural bodybuilding channel. You see? Art mimicking reality right there, or truth, or my video. So something I want to talk to you about today is limits. And what are your natural bodybuilding limits? And that's the question everybody always has, right? So you'll see in the comments sections of every single YouTube video or Instagram, people arguing about what the limits are of natural bodybuilding, or what the limits are with what you should be doing in your training, such as only eat so much protein, only do so many sets, only do certain types of rep ranges or certain types of volume. But what you're going to find is a vast discrepancy between different people and what they need, or what they found is their limit or their threshold in order to establish growth. Fountain. So the unfortunate thing about this is that you have to do some experimentation. So the question is, how do you find out what your limits are? Well, a lot of times you find out your limits by snapping something, or by overtraining, or by maybe training really well, getting good results for a period of time, and then all of a sudden noticing that you start to go backwards a little bit, right? Such as your muscles starting to flatten out, or you start to lose a little bit of strength, or you start to feel burnout. These are all signs or warnings of perhaps you're not doing something efficiently or possibly the best for you. And of course, diet and sleep and lifestyle choices all factor into this. So one of the ways that I figured out what works is that I would train and just pick a certain amount of sets for a body part based on whatever frequency I was doing, and then see how I felt. And then if I started to notice that I was going backwards or getting burned out, then I would cut back the sets subtly, right? Now, the other thing is, I found with heavyweights, for instance, when I started doing heavy bench presses, like 4 rep sets to failure on the bench, and I was doing this repeatedly because, of course, when you first start training, you know, a lot of times equate strength with hypertrophy, and there is some link there, but it's not in direct proportion, right? It's not directly proportional. But what I would do is go into the gym and do heavy sets of 4 reps and stuff, thinking I'm going to just automatically get results. Well, I would get results for a workout or two, and then of course I'd start to get weaker, or I'd start to go backwards. So once I started to go backwards in my training, or I'd start to feel like I'm getting tweaked or partially injured, or a little bit, let's just say, worn out in the joints, and my strength was going down, I took that as a for sure warning sign that I was doing too much, or I was doing too heavy, or too many sets. So of course, as you can imagine, this experiment took a long time. I've been training 35 years, but back in the day, these experiments took place over years, right? So I'd back off on the weight, I'd back off on the sets, I'd start doing a high rep day and then a low rep day and see how I responded. And I found that when I did heavyweight too often, I actually got the opposite effect of what I was looking for, which was more strength. I actually would get weaker. So I found that the high rep days really assisted with me gaining strength and hypertrophy, and also gave the joints a rest, because no matter who you talk to, anybody that has experience is going to tell you that heavy weights are definitely harder on the joints. Just the shear forces alone and the shearing forces involved do play a role in forcing the joints to have to adapt. And of course, if you do too much, then you're going to snap something, or end up with a chronic inflammation and so forth. So the truth is that you have to experiment to find out what your limits are. It's good to start with a template. I have templates on my website, I have workout programs, but nobody can tell you the exact recipe or the exact formula that will apply blindly to everyone. And of course, you're going to notice that you are going to adapt over time, and your body will sometimes need more, sometimes need less. There's one theory out there that once you get stronger, you need less sets in order to accomplish the same task. I'm not saying I believe that or not, but it is something worth investigating for yourself. So yeah, what I recommend is taking one variable of your training and only change that. And watch what happens with your workouts when you do a certain amount of that variable, and then just adjust that one variable and see if your body responds positively or negatively. And then you just conduct these experiments with many of the variables or the different variables involved and see what happens. So yeah, of course there are limits to what you can accomplish. There are limits to what you can adapt to. But the truth is that nobody can tell you exactly what those limits are. It's going to require some experimentation on your part. And then from doing so, you're going to find out where those limits are, right? But one thing I do have to say is that there are going to be some general rules which definitely do apply as a blanket statement. As a bodybuilder, if bodybuilding is your purpose, remember you're more an anaerobic athlete than an endurance athlete. And running 100 miles a day or something like that is going to go against your goals, because then your body's going to be adapting primarily to endurance and aerobic activity instead of muscular growth, of course, right? So yeah, you can do high rep sets, but doing high rep sets, usually you want to last under about a couple minutes for sure anyway, if you want to get hypertrophy results. We're at night at the Roxbury on the Harrison Lake here. So basically there's a difference between anaerobic adaptation and aerobic adaptation. And yes, a little bit of aerobic can help the anaerobic, but you have to choose which to specialize in specifically if you want the body to adapt in a certain direction, which is, you know, pretty much a no-brainer. Most people understand that, but just in case you don't, yeah, that is a factor, right? So doing high rep sets, yes, that can work, building muscle and building strength, but you want to be in that anaerobic window, which is under 2 minutes for a set to failure, or a minute and a half or so. You know, it's around there. And as long as you're not lasting longer than that, and you're basically taking your sets over 10 minutes, you know, and basically breath becomes the failure rather than the muscles, you're going to be stimulating the muscles more than the aerobic activity, which is what you want when you're doing bodybuilding. So yeah, this is how I found out what my limits are. These are the experiments that I just conducted to find out. But yeah, just take one variable, play around with it, and see how your body responds. Mountain. So I hope this helped out in your training. Thanks a lot for watching. If you need to get a hold of me, just go to naturalgallantbodybuilding.com, and thanks to the Patreon supporters. And there I have a podcast every single week. Make sure you check that out. And thanks for watching. Mountain. Natural Gallant.